Hi there, Grant from Penguin Motors here. In today's video we're going to show a back-to-back test against some 38mm Mikuni carburetors and a set of 37mm Cayennes. Plus we're going to do a manifold swap and show some ram pipes and things. This wasn't really intended to be a true back-to-back, because what it was about setting up a client's engine, Paul Kemps engine. You've seen it in some other videos, and he brought it to me with a set of bike carbs fitted and a megajolt ignition system. He said, can I dyno it and help him set it up? And I said, I really like bike carbs, and I don't know anything about the megajolt, but why don't we put it on the dyno? I'll bolt my Webers and distributor in it, we do a few pulls on it, get a baseline, see what it makes, and that makes it much easier for me to then switch to bike carbs and get a feel whether we're going the right way, wrong way, whatever. So that was the plan. So that's what we did. So we've already run this engine hundreds of times, and we know on my 45s with the bigger chokes in it, it returns 174, 175 horsepower. And if you watched our last video, you'll know on the 38 Mikuni bike carburetors, it gets fairly close to that. Although it does lose out a bunch of mid-range. But, you know, that is what it is. That was actually the second set of bike carbs we put on there, because the first set that was intended to go on the engine didn't actually work. So Paul put that set together and put them on, and we made it run on them. So that's the first set, and that's the set you saw in the earlier video. So what we're going to do now, we're going to show you some quick dyno footage of it running on the Mikunis, and then we're going to swap to Cayennes, and then we're going to swap other few pieces about. So, are you ready, boys? Should we make some noise? Let's go. First up, a baseline run with our 38mm Mikuni carburetors. At this point, I decided to do exhaust manifold swap. Up till now, most of the testing had been done on a common and garden small bore 421 manifold. But that manifold was never going to be used in the car that this engine belongs to. So I thought it only makes sense to switch out the 421 for the 4:1. Incidentally, both manifolds use the same diameter primary pipe, and the overall length, when you add the secondaries into the 421, the overall length for the two manifolds is the same. On a previous test, the 4:1 manifold didn't fare very well when used on my Webers. It produced a nasty downward spike in the torque curve. However, the bike carbs, it'll actually work quite well. Here we go. 38mm Mikuni bike carbs, 4.1 and 4.21 manifold. And the 4.1 manifold in red is slightly better everywhere. It's not a big difference. Most points it's 1 to 2 horsepower, but it's an improvement almost everywhere. Unlike when we tried this manifold on the Webers, in which case it produced a big hole around the 3700 RPM. And if you look at the shapes of power curves, there's no real difference. You know, it's not a case of one's added a stack more power at the top, one's added a stack more mid-range. They're both very similar. And on the road you'd probably struggle to tell the difference, but on the dyno here we've got a difference. So we've now got the manifold that we're going to run on the car. So the next thing is to introduce the 37mm Cayenne carburetors and see how it performs with that. So there we have it. The spaced out 38mm Mercuries on the straight manifold against the non-spaced 37mm Cayennes on the angled and splayed manifold. And yeah, there's no real comparison there, other than a bit in the mid-range where they're pretty similar. The smaller carbs on the angled manifold lost out at the bottom and they lost out at the top, but it's not really surprising. They are slightly smaller, and the manifold, although it's a fraction longer, has got several corners in it, so it's no real wonder. At some points we're down 12 horsepower. But the thought all along is, to be honest, these bike manifolds, they're too short anyway. So we're now going to run the engine with some ram pipes in to get some length into the intake, and that should give us a different picture. So, we ready, boys? It's time to make some noise. Wow, what a difference. Those ram pipes really made a change. At some points in the rev range we're up 9 horsepower. And overall, the curve is just better everywhere. This is win-win. The now smaller 37mm carbs, in terms of pure outright power, they're now pretty close to the bigger 38s, and at some points in the rev range they're actually better. So certainly, for sure, ram pipe tuning on bike carbs makes a difference. So what did we learn? Well, basically, be it Weber carbs or bike carbs, the rules are pretty similar. These engines like straight and they like long, and they also like bigger. So from an airflow point, a manifolding perspective, ideally you tune a set of bike carbs the same way you do any other sort of carb. And although I haven't shown it, I did one final test where I ran the carbs, the last set, with the long trumpets with the air filter on. Big sausage filter. The sausage came quite close to the edge of the trumpets, so I wasn't sure whether that would have any effect on our output. The effect was negligible. I couldn't be sure it wasn't a difference run to run. Maybe a horsepower, maybe not. So in terms of keeping the rocks out of your engine, big sausage filter, obviously no downside. And on that final note, if you like what you saw, you know what to do, guys. Click, share, subscribe, like, ring the bell. It really makes a difference and helps me bring you more video. Catch you on the flip side.